Okay, copy, thanks, Iris. No, okay, I've got it now. We were looking at a monitor lizard. There's a leopard right there. Yeah, if you come forward, just to the other side of that bush that you're behind, you might get a view. It looks like she's about to jump on a terrapin or something. Can you see her there? There's the leopard. Isn't that special? That's why we came down here. We hoped that maybe the leopard would be here. Let's just try. Oh, look, she's going to jump for something. I think she's going to try and catch a terrapin or a fish. A terrapin is like a turtle. We know this leopard. Her name is Shongile. Except now we are getting conflicting reports from the final control saying no, they think that that is not Shongile. I think that they are right. I think that might be Shongile's brother, Hosana, so a young male leopard. Wonderful. In fact, it is almost certainly. Yes, look. Is it? Isn't that special, everybody? That is a very beautiful little cat, and he is now just over a year old. And you know why he looks a little bit sad? They can't find his mum at the moment. But he's okay, he will survive even if his mum isn't around. Let's go a little bit forward, and I'll tell you why we need to go a little bit forward. It's definitely the little male. I just thought it was the female straight away, simply because we often see her here and not often the male. I'm just going to go a little forward to see if we can't have a look here. There. That's a nice picture. Can you see him there? There we go. Now, text looks like, Yuri, are you sure it's a female and not Hosana? I think this is the little male, yes. Now, the reason I moved, I know this isn't the best view, but if he does actually decide to jump for something, at least we'll be able to see now. So I was telling you the story of this young male. He and his sister, their mum disappeared about a month ago, but that's okay. They're old enough to look after themselves, but we don't know what's happened to their mum. And so, oh, look, oh, something's jumped in the water. I'm just going to go back again. I wonder if that wasn't his sister maybe, or maybe a kingfisher, a bird trying to look for a fish. Just go back, I think, to where we originally were while we answer Brendan's question. Brendan wants to know how, I think this might be the best. Let's stop here. You want to know how fast they can run? Brendan, they are very fast indeed. They can run probably about, I'd say about 40 miles an hour. So they're very quick. Now he's patiently waiting there to see what will come down to the water or what will come out of the water. We're so lucky to see this beautiful animal here. We don't see them all the time. And these two, he and his sister Hosana and Shongile, they are two of our favorite animals because, you know, we've watched them from the day they were born. They were born in February, on the 2nd of February, and Brent, who you haven't met today, he found them on the day they were born. And so we've watched them since they were tiny little babies. And Ellie, you want to know the difference between a cheetah and a leopard? Well, Ellie, a cheetah looks a little bit the same. They've got spots just like that on their faces, but when you see Hosana and his whole body, you'll see that the spots change from the face and onto the body, and they start to form patterns that we call rosettes. So they're just sort of little round patterns of black spots that are almost sort of gold in the middle. Cheetah doesn't have that. Cheetah's got just spots like that leopard's got all over its body. So that's one difference. The other big difference is that a cheetah is built very slightly. Now that means that they don't have big muscles like a leopard's got. They've got long muscles that allow them to stretch out when they're running at 60 to 65 miles an hour. That's how fast a cheetah is. So much faster than a leopard. But they don't have the same power. They're not as strong. And so they don't look stocky. They don't look like they're built very strongly. And if you imagine a greyhound, do you know what a greyhound is, or a whippet? Maybe your teacher will show you a picture. That's a kind of a dog. And they're built very slightly, but they're the fastest dogs in the world, versus something like a bull terrier, of course, which is very, very strong, but it's not very fast. And that's the kind of difference, except a leopard is very fast, but it's not nearly as fast as a cheetah. So a leopard's got lots more muscles, and a cheetah is much slighter and a little bit taller. And that means that they move at different times of the day. The leopard moves in the middle of the day, at least in the middle of the night, and the cheetah moves in the day. Now, Lanesville, you're wondering about why they're covered in black spots. Well, they're covered in black spots, Lanesville, for the simple reason that it makes them difficult to see. Now, I know that it doesn't look very difficult to see to your eyes out here and in the middle of the day, but remember, they normally hunt around night time, and those spots are difficult for an animal that doesn't see as well as us to pick up. Now, many of the animals out here, although they can see well, they don't see colour. Now, you see that. Look at that picture. That's almost impossible to see that leopard in there, isn't it? It's almost completely impossible. And that's half because he's got those spots. Now, if you were not able to see in colour, remember, we can see hundreds of different colours. Hundreds of different little colours, and animals out here cannot see those colours. And so, even though that leopard looks obvious to us, it's not the same for most animals. All right, everyone, we're going to hand you over to Jamie for the last few minutes of your very special safari. She's got something that this little leopard, but especially that hardy-dar ibis, would love to eat. I don't think beat us is the correct term at all. We got very lucky in that we came down here. Yuri, who's the landowner of Djuma, was here. He popped up, saw the leopard and said, well, would you like to see it? And I replied, well, if we must. And here we are with Hosana. And Hosana is staring into a red spikethorn bush. I'm not entirely sure. I suppose, a bit like his sister, he's probably after the ducklings that are over here, that have been in and out of the water here. The white-faced whistling ducklings. It wouldn't be a white-faced whistling duckling, would it? It would be a white-faced whistling duckling. Yes, better. And he just looks a little bit pained at the moment. He doesn't look satisfied like he used to when he'd devoured most of his mother's catches. But I have to tell you, I don't think he looks half bad. I don't think he looks like he's skinny. I think much like his sister, he's probably making do with the sort of dregs of predatory society food. And that is the rites of passage that he must fulfill in order to become an adult male leopard of the great Sabi Sant. He must learn the hard way. Not a life of privilege. He's led a life of privilege up to now. Them days seem to be over. And I know this isn't the best picture of him, but I'm afraid we can't really get a better one from here. Lauren, you want to know the difference between a male and the female and how we can tell the difference? Well, the best way to tell, not to find a point on it, Lauren, is to look under the tail. With the male, you will see 2 golden orbs. Don't mean that in a facetious fashion. You can absolutely see that if you look underneath his tail. But when they get to this age, so he's now, they're just over a year old, right? When they get to that age, he's actually a lot bigger than his sister now. And so his size is very obviously male now. And when he's an adult, when they're completely adult, well, then he will be much bigger. Their necks get thicker, their heads get bigger, and they're just much larger. They're about the average female in this area, probably about 35 kilograms, 32 kilograms. And the average male, I was reading up on this actually, and we've used terms like 80, 85, 90 sometimes. So 72 or so is about the average of the Kruger males that have been measured. Now obviously there have only been about 20 of them measured, and not when they're in their prime. So when he's he'll be almost double the size, mass-wise, of a female when he's fully grown. If you see him and his sister together, you could never mistake one for a male and one for a female. He's obviously stocky, though. When I first saw his face, I obviously made a mistake, but that's because I'm an idiot. It's not because they're difficult to tell apart. The young male we saw this morning, I don't know if you were on drive today, we've had a really lucky day, was Vutomi. And Vutomi, despite being about 3 months older than this fellow, is, I'd say, about the same same height at the shoulder. He's not nearly as stocky as young Hosana, and you might confuse him for a young female. But this chap, if you saw him out in the open, you really wouldn't if you'd seen a young female as well. So I hope that sort of answers your question. But it's difficult until they're probably, I don't know, about 6 months old, when the males start to get slightly larger than the females. But you can see behind their tails, and then it's very obvious. Now it seems that Byron, while we wait for Hosana to do something useful, has managed to find a slithering creature. There we have Hosana. He's not doing a great deal at the moment. He's moved down into the lee of the dam, so we moved round so that we could get a sort of distant view of him. And he is looking most definitely at the white-faced whistling ducks. You see them there. There they are. Now, while we look at the white-faced whistling duck, which is a spectacularly beautiful duck, who is moving now, sorry, seems though he's gone up again. He's just gone behind that bush. You see him? I can't see him either. What I just wanted to say to you about the mass of these leopards is interesting, because I said sort of average 70, 72. It's actually even lower than that. And I'll give you the exact information, because you might not believe me otherwise. Where's he gone? I think it's going to be best to go around the other side. Hold on a sec. Reese, you want to know how much bigger Hosana is than Shungile, is that right? Sorry, I got distracted there because Kirsten's voice was so loud. It felt like the voice of a sort of demigod. I would say that he's probably about 2/3 bigger than she is. I think 66% larger. She is very slight. She is very, very small. Now he's gone into the thick bushes here. If we do lose a little bit of signal, there's some picture breakup, I apologize. But this little leopard is now on the hunt for white-faced whistling ducks. I see him. Do you see him? We'll just go around this little corner here. Hopefully the signal will maintain. Come on, maintain. How's that? Is that right? There he is. Beautiful. And all right, so let's just get to their masses, right? So this comes from what I believe to be the most, I think certainly the most scientifically accurate representation of mammal life in southern Africa, and that comes from the Smithers Guide to African Mammals, and it's all done from peer-reviewed public or published papers and research. So it's not guides like me giving a general impression after a couple of years on safari. So some of it will be too scientific, but some of it, like these sort of hard statistics like mass and that sort of thing, are very difficult to dispute. So we have a list here of Kruger leopards, and they've been caught or killed at various stages of their lives. The important part of what I'm going to tell you now, though, of course, is the sample size. They're all very small sample sizes, which means that to create an average from, say, 5 old adult males is very difficult because, 5 is not a good number to make an average from an entire population. Anyway, for what it's worth, old adults in the Kruger National Park, 5 of them have been measured, and old, I'm assuming, is sort of greater than 10 years old. 63.1 kilograms for old adult males. Prime adult males, so between sort of 8 and 10 years old, only 58.2 kilograms, and that is a sample size of only 3. Females, prime adults, 37.5 and 37.2 as old ones, so you could say 37 odd. So Karula probably sitting at around 37.5 kilos or so. You can work that out in pounds by multiplying it by 2.2, and you will get to roughly 80 pounds or so. But the males, I think we have almost universally been overestimating their sizes. So I think that's quite interesting. And Kruger leopards in southern Africa are the biggest. We get the Cape leopard obviously being the much smaller, with the Cape male leopard being even smaller than a female here. I know this isn't the best picture, but I don't think we should move at the moment. I think we should stay right where we are. Just see what he does. Beverly, Senzo was just asking me exactly the same sort of thing. You said, why do leopards' tails twitch when they're lying at rest? It's not always when they're at rest. It's often when they're in the open and they feel like the tail is exposing them, or that they are exposed. They flick that little white tail up to stop the birds alarm calling at them. And that's, again, this is one of these facts that you won't read in a book. You might, but the book will have been written by a guide. It won't have been written by a peer-reviewed researcher. It's impossible to prove that that's the case. I've just seen it many times when a leopard is walking along the road and the birds start alarm calling. You flick his tail up and just put it up as a sort of sign of surrender or peace, to say, I'm not after you this time round, chum. How many times do you suppose we have driven past this leopard and his sister sitting in here? Right, Byron Sarau is on the of Cheetah. Perhaps he's looking for wild dogs. Perhaps he will find them. I think that conversation turned absurd long ago, which I think is wonderful. It's not a criticism in the slightest. I think the more absurd the conversation, the better. And all of you talking about the white triangle fatty, yes, indeed, most of you, or many of you, including my source of all knowledge, Judy H., managed to correctly identify it as the two-pip policeman, Culeadus pisistratus. Very nice. And then also, I must just say, if you were watching the drive, Judy H. has very gently scolded me that I pointed out a butterfly before, the white triangle fatty, and in case you were looking at it, it looks nothing like Hosana, and I said it was a common diadem, which it looks like, but actually it was something called Anophis, Amoris ochlea. So if you want to go and look that up, you can. Amaursochlea. That's a novice butterfly. Almost certainly what it was. So thank you, Judy H., for your gentle scolding again. I will now scold myself not so gently. There we go. I've beaten myself to within an inch of my life. And now we will watch Hosana. Now what he's done is that he's snuck around the bushes. He spotted some impala up ahead that are sort of slowly making their way down towards Twin Dams to have a drink. He's almost certainly not going to try and hunt one of them in this light. I mean, he'd be really lucky to get a hold of one of these things, but maybe he'll find a youngster that's not very aware this evening before the full moon rises, because I think it is full moon tonight. And that's obviously very poor hunting conditions for a leopard like this. I also managed to spot the ducklings, the white-faced whistling ducklings, and that's almost certainly what he was trying to stalk initially. So the distance there between them is what? I'd say about 100 meters, probably 150 meters or so, 450 to 500 feet. So there's no ways he's going to make a challenge from here. But between here and there is some cover, there's bits of cover here and there, and he could theoretically get to probably within, I'd say within 100 feet without trying too hard. But as soon as one of them looked up here, they'd spot his little face. And what a perfect little face it is. Miguel, you're wondering about their diet and their development and whether their current diet of white-faced whistling ducks, terrapins, frogs and various insects affect their development. The answer is not at this stage, no, I don't believe so. I think, as far as I understand it, and I stand to be corrected again, either gently or forcefully, that if you are to suffer a nutritional deficit sort of before puberty and even sort of halfway to puberty, yes, it'll have a lasting effect on your development. But, and I mean that for people and I mean it for animals as well, by this stage he is well into his sort of into puberty basically, and I don't believe that eating what he's eating now is going to harm his development. I don't think at all. Look, it might a little bit if he was to be starved. He doesn't look starved though, so he's eating. He's not eating big pieces of fresh prime cut steak, but he's certainly eating things, be they insects, squirrels, mongoose, fish, frogs, maybe the odd terrapin or two, or ducks. You know, whatever he's eating a fair amount. So he's doing okay. It's not like he looks, there's a wonderful Afrikaans term for this, it's not like he looks skraal. Skraal means kind of what it sounds like, skinny and not very healthy. Now there's the impala are coming this way. That's why he's got up. And his little cat instincts he is unable to contain. I can tell you almost categorically that he's been spotted. No, he hasn't. There was an impala staring right here. They're going off into the thicket now. Now it's a bachelor group of males, and they don't seem to be. I mean, there's nothing there that I think that all of that's too big for him. I don't think he could take something like that on, unless he was very lucky. And he might be able to get them if they were in the process of right at the middle of the rut when they had lost condition and they weren't paying any attention. But these guys are in good shape. That's not causing him any sense of now coming just behind them. Sorry, Senzo, we've got some females, and they are smaller. No, there's one female there and some young males. Oh, and now he's been given away by a squirrel. Let's go. Oh, isn't that beautiful? I don't even know where to look. So now we've got the impala running, and there is the leopard, and just above him, a squirrel has started to alarm call. Now those impala will pick that up. So now he's looking at them longingly. He's salivating at the thought of a fresh and... Oh, where on earth is he going? That's not how a leopard hunts, that's how a cheetah hunts. Hold on tight. Did you see where he went? There he is. Yeah, he's going cheetah style, everybody. Now I'm going to have to try and keep my distance because I don't want to disturb him on his first hunt. He's going straight in front of us, along with 7,000 branches, bushes, trees, holes, rocks. That is fantastic. That really was very special. Yeah, I'm going to have to be very ginger through here, I'm afraid. And I tell you, that's one of the major advantages of the Mara, is that you can drive off-road without sounding like you're running a business. There he is, he's straight in front of us. Without sounding like you're demolishing a building. Hosana, who taught you to do that? Of course, this grass is it's an advantage and a disadvantage. Now, Pradeep, you're wondering if he'd share his kill with his sister. I don't think he'd be that hostile towards her. Would he offer her a piece? No. Would he allow her to feed on it once he had eaten a lot? Yes, he might. Now, I say this grass is an advantage and a disadvantage. You can see why it's both. Of course, the impala cannot see him. That's the advantage. The disadvantage, of course, is that he can't see nothing either. He can't see over the top of the grass. Megan, you say, do the impalas know he's too small to take them down? No. If they saw him, that alarm call, even those big males would be afraid. He's got up, he's moving. But now he's got to guess where they are. He's got to smell. He's got to listen and try and sort of figure out where they've gone. Isn't that wonderful? I love the colour of the three-horn grass with the leopard walking through it. It's beautiful. And you're all, of course, discussing the baby impala that he caught the other day. So, I mean, he has killed antelope. I wonder if he did it cheetah style like this. You know, who am I to tell him how to hunt? I've never killed a baby impala. You see him, Senzo? He went just behind these bushes here. I'm going to go around a bit. I don't want to go directly where he went for fear of running him over. It might be time to leave him to his own devices. We're looking for moving grass, flicking tail, spot. You cannot believe how quickly these... Oh, there he is. He's miles in front of us. He's just in front there. Alright, there he is. Let's go across to Jamie. She is knocking about somewhere. I'm not sure what she's looking at, but let's go and find out if she's managed to feed Fergus anything approximating a silkworm. Hosana is about to cross to the south, I'm afraid. There he is, crossing the road. Oh, he's now on the road, on the little fire break. And he's thinking about going south. He stopped his cheetah attack. We've got a good look at how thin he is now. Look, he's not fat. He's not looking in wonderful shape, but he's not too bad. He's skinnier than I thought he was. His hips are not looking great. Come on, young fellow. You just need one big meal, and you'll be okay. Where is his mother? Yes, Larry, almost certainly. You say, would a leopard respond to a recorded playback? Have we got a flat tire? We're all right. Yes, lions certainly respond to recorded playbacks of other lions, and I think leopards would do the same. Especially if it was a stranger. They can hear the difference between the different animals that call in their areas. So he would almost definitely be able to hear the difference between his mother's call and his father's call. Whether he'd acknowledge Tingana as his father or not, I don't know. But that call of Tingana's would be familiar to him. He would know it from the area. I think he's going to go to the south, unfortunately. It's not that unfortunate. I mean, we're coming up on sunset, and I think for a young leopard that is vulnerable like this, it'd be best to let him hunt alone at night. He's been very, very good to us this afternoon. Going up onto the termite mound for a vantage. We might get a last view of him here. Yeah, using the termite mound to see what he might be able to catch from here. Just keep going, boy. I promise you will eventually find something nice to eat. There he sits. Magnificent fellow. He's hearing things constantly, you know. And at least he's not lying down, sort of not trying to hunt. He's making a big effort to try and hunt. Well, Jan, in Washington, you say, how does Hosana know where to go? Well, I'm not sure that he does. I think he's walking a fairly random path at the moment, looking for something to eat, hoping for something to eat, hoping something that he'd like to eat comes across his path. He's just walking through areas that his mum used to take him to. They used to walk through these areas quite frequently. What's he spotted? There's quite a favourite impala haunt not far from here, just inside Little Gari, which is the reserve to the south of us. Just, yeah, exactly where Senzo's pointing the camera. What I'm going to do is shift you slightly forward, so that if he does move, I don't have to move again, if you know what I mean. So we won't disturb him if he does move. There we go. Now that's a perfect place for a leopard to be, especially as the light starts to fade. Mario, you say, what's cheetah style as opposed to leopard style? Cheetah style is a long coursing run after an animal. So a cheetah on a clearing will chase its prey. It'll course it down, so it'll chase it over about a quarter of a mile normally, or often, at full speed in the open. And it uses its speed rather than stealth to catch its prey, which is a little bit like what Hosana looked like he was doing there. A leopard style is to sneak very close to within sort of 20 meters, 10 meters sometimes, so 30 feet or 60 feet, and then pounce from there. So it's a much more stealthy approach to prey than it is a coursing attack like the cheetah will make. So when I saw him dart off like that, running after the impala, that looked much more cheetah-ish than it did leopardish. Leopardish and cheetah-ish are not words, of course. I made them up. Interesting, he's got a very definite nick in his left ear, which he's probably had for some time. In the top of his left ear. So our right. And that's quite interesting. Other ear. Other left sensor. That's the one. He's now, of course, embarrassed by it, so he's hidden it. There it is. I think he's had it for a while, but I wonder what happened to him. That looks like a bite to me. Could have even been his sister, I suppose. And things are getting beautifully quiet again. It's one of those times of the day. I described a few of them this morning. I said there was the dawn, which had that air of expectation, then the energy kind of changes at about 8 o'clock in the morning, and then it stays like it has. Well, then you get this sort of lead up in the afternoon, the late afternoon, and now the sunset, and we have a change in the energy again. The expectation starts to build, starts to rise. Now, I believe Byron has had a tremendous amount of success of late. He is going to show you, I think, some air. We're going to have one very last look at Hosana. I'm sorry about the crash cut. That's what we call that when we lose signal on another vehicle and suddenly you find me, this time semi-prepared for it. Let's have one last look over there, and I'll explain to you why we're going to leave him. He's fast asleep, so he's not, well, he's sort of fast asleep. No, he's fast asleep. I've lulled him to sleep with my boring voice. And so he's going to snooze there, and I don't want to disturb him. It's going to get dark. It's going to be an ideal time in about 10 minutes for him to go hunting. It would be grossly unfair for us to follow this leopard on the hunt at this stage of his life, because we'd make too much noise. So unless we could do it in an electric vehicle with a thermal camera, it wouldn't be fair. So although he may well sleep here for another 2 hours or so, I think we need to let him get a handle on the world without our presence so that he can go off and do the hunting that he needs to do. Good grief, we have a question from Rainbow, whose age is just 3 years old. Rainbow, you say, does this kitty like to be petted? No, Rainbow, you can't pet this cat. He's too big, and he's too strong, and he's too wild. He's our wild cat. You can't pet him, Rainbow. He doesn't look very wild now, does he? But because we are standing away from him and we're not going near him, he's not so wild. But if you go anywhere near him, Rainbow, he will go wild. So you can't pet a leopard. Okay, that's going to be it. Oh, wait, hang on a second. And Audrey, as you're 12 years old, and you know this is the third kind of question we've had about a similar topic. I said a while back that human beings hate to be alone. We don't, well, we like it sometimes, just for a little while, but then we get lonely. We get horribly lonely, don't we, Audrey? You will know that, and especially as you go into your teenage years, you will feel it even more, I imagine. A leopard, quite unlike a human being, does not feel that same sense of loneliness. They like to be alone. They want to be alone. They don't like to be around other leopards, unless they are mating or unless a mother is with her cubs. It's a good question, Audrey, and it's a difficult one for us to understand because, of course, we are the opposite. All right, let's leave little Hosana to sleep on his termite mound. Let's wish him the best of luck. and hope that by the end of the evening he's managed to catch himself something substantial to eat. I'm going to go with steenbok. I think that would be a nice meal for him. It will be a very bad night for the steenbok. Well, that's just how it goes if you happen to be the steenbok. Now, I'm trying to find out where Byron is, because I thought I might give him a hand with those alarm calls. So if he would like a hand, I shall ask Kirsten to tell him that I am available. If
I think I have indeed, James. I found a leopard. Finally. Not the leopard we were looking for, I don't think. I'm not sure. I think this is possibly Hosana. This was the area that James had him in earlier. So I think this is perhaps Hosana. There we go. I don't want to shine the spotlight directly. Do you want infrared? Can I go infrared? Oh, there we go. Look at that. Infrared. That's impressive. That's wonderful. Oh, beautiful. Well, what a lovely surprise. I cannot see clearly which leopard this is, but I think it is possibly that young male. There's long grass, and it's quite far from the vehicle, so it's a bit difficult for me to tell, especially now it's dark. I can't see anything there unless I look a little bit on the screen, but sometimes it's difficult for us. That's lovely. This is really great. So finally, and Craig was just shouting at me, he said I didn't find him anything exciting on the drive. He forgot about the snake. I thought the snake was great. It's wonderful with this infrared because we're not disturbing it. And this young leopard would still be able to move through the long grass and stalk. If it was perhaps looking for something like a scrub hare, that would be great for a leopard now, especially a young leopard. A little scrub hare, nice little snack, little meal. Yeah. But look how well it's or hidden in that long grass. See, and that's why, I mean, fortunately with the spotlights at night I picked up on the eyes, but during the day I think if we were driving past it might have been very difficult to spot that leopard in that long grass. I mean, really well hidden in there. Chris, you say you think it is Hosana. Like I said, it's this is the area. I mean, we're just up the road from Twin Dams, where James did have this young male leopard earlier. So I think it is that one. But it is just wonderful to find a leopard, any leopard at night, and to see what they get up to. If you're lucky, might get a bit of activity from them. See them moving around, possibly trying to pounce on something in the long grass, or stalk impala or anything if they are around. I didn't see anything around when we arrived, so it's lovely. I do think, though, what I am going to do is I think I'm going to leave this young leopard. James spent a wonderful afternoon with it. And I don't know, part of me, I'm not worried about these young leopards, but, I'd like to give them a bit of space when we can, because we know they're struggling to hunt. They are picking bits and pieces here and there, but they need to try and eat, so I prefer to give them a bit of space if we have had the opportunity to see them for a while. I'm sure most of you would agree. So I think we'll leave this young leopard, let him carry on with his business for the evening, and hopefully he manages to catch something substantial to eat, whether it be a scrub hare or perhaps a young antelope, a young impala. That would be an ideal meal for it. But lovely surprise. That was great. There we go. Craig, you happy? But I think, like I say, let us move on and leave that young leopard. Oof. Can't see Craig.